Thank you all. Thank you everyone from Flint. We appreciate the opportunity today to showcase Unified Student Admit, our CRM recruitment solution. My name is Ann Fisher, and I'm the Regional Vice President at Unified. And we also have Dennis Thibault on the call, who will be our Chief Product Officer and doing the demo today. Next slide. Really briefly, I want to take one moment and just share with you a little bit about Unified as a company. Unified was built by higher ed for higher ed. So in 2003, Unified was formed in collaboration with 14 universities of various types and sizes. Several of the institutions were Kansas State, Washington State University, and UNC Chapel Hill. Their goal was to improve student engagement and not reinvent the wheel on integration to common applications. So we're a privately held, profitable company headquartered in Chicago, Illinois. We have over 400 employees, and we work with over 850 global higher education institutions. A few of them are represented by the logos you see here on the screen. We also partner strategically with vendors that you're used to seeing and working with in the higher ed space, such as the ones you see here. Next slide. This is our ecosystem. In the middle, in yellow, is our student experience. All the black squares are Unified solutions. And if you go to the 7 a.m. hour on the sundial, you will see Unified Student Admit and where it fits into our big picture. I'm now going to turn you over to Dennis, and he will start the demo for our Admit solution. Dennis?
Yep, thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen now, hopefully get the right one. And if you could just confirm that you can see this, Ann. Do you see a prospect task to-do list?
Yes, you can.
Awesome, thank you very much. Feel free to enter any questions you have into the chat window as I go through this. Normally my presentation is a couple of hours long, so trying to do this in 45 or 50 minutes is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So what I'm going to do is focus mostly on the things that I believe differentiate us from some of the other vendors on the market, and focus more on those topics as opposed to the generic topic itself. Suffice it to say that we do pretty much everything that any other vendor does. So I'm going to start by highlighting the differences. And if there are any specific questions along the way, feel free to put them in and I'll cover those topics specifically. I'm going to start with a little bit about what we're doing and how we do it. Everything we're doing is a web-based, cloud-hosted solution. We host everything in Amazon Web Services, and it's all fully redundant and backed up. So a college that goes with our solution doesn't have to worry about hardware on campus. They don't have to worry about depreciation of that hardware, maintenance, software installations, and all that sort of thing. We take care of all of that for you in the cloud. It's all based on new technology, utilizing microservices. And again, I won't get into that. It's a little more technical than this presentation would have. But suffice it to say, it's a more modern way of programming. It does make development a little bit faster and easier. We don't have tens of thousands of lines of code that are all revamped over the past 15, 20 years. We have very modern technology. And finally, because it is hosted in the cloud under our corporate accounts, we do 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week monitoring of your applications for you. So somebody is there proactively watching to make sure your application is working effectively, that it's up and running, and that the performance is going to meet your needs. So all those worries go behind you. Well, in addition to that, we've designed the system to work effectively for colleges that have different needs for different departments. With many systems on the market, what you see is what you get. You get whatever they deliver. What we deliver to you is something that enables you to set up a concept that we call calendar type. But what it does is it gives you the ability to differentiate between different schools. If you're a large university with the School of Medicine and the School of Arts and Sciences and so forth, you can have different rules, different forms, different business logic, literally for every different piece of your school. For smaller schools, they might just divide it up into continuing education and traditional. But you do have the ability to divide it up any way you want, and each of those divisions can have its own academic calendar, its own terms, parts of terms, business rules, business logic. The forms can all be different. But most importantly, the CRM, the communications with the prospects and the applicants can all be unique to each of those individual environments. So you'll see that as we go through the demo, when I start talking about calendar types and that kind of thing, you'll have a sense of what that's all about. We also focus a lot on analytics, which a lot of companies do have these days. I'll show you some of the things that we've done that I think make ours very, very easy to use. Everything you see on the dashboard here is controlled by roles. So when you log into our system, you can be assigned to one or more roles, and those roles will govern what you see on the system, whether it's a widget that's available on your dashboard or even the menu options on the left-hand side. So a recruiter who handles only prospects would maybe only see the prospect tabs, whereas a person who is in the admissions area handling applications would see the application-related tabs. Now, I'm logged in as an administrator, and I've given myself all the roles and rights and privileges, so I'm going to be able to see and demo everything. So I have a little bit larger menu than what most people would have, and I'll see more things on my widget list than other people might see. This particular one is just as a to-do list. It's for a recruiter to manage their day-to-day tasks. What do they have to do today? This one's for an admissions counselor, very similar to the to-do list for prospect management, except for they have to review applications and checklist items that come in from their applicants. Before I show you exactly how these work, I just want to show you some of the other types of things that we have here. This is a chart that just shows prospects by location. You can see that we're showing all the different states in this case, and you just hover over them and you get the list. And you can advance forwards and backwards and see different states if you choose to. And this is more or less your admissions funnel, showing you all your prospects and then the number that become applicants and all the different statuses that you can define within the application. You can define as many different statuses as you want, and they can all appear automatically on these dashboard widgets. Other kinds of widgets are things like these other charts that are just showing me checklist items that have come in or that are pending to come in or that have been completed, or here's a couple that have been received. And over here is just a recruiting trend to show me a year-to-year comparison of where I am this year versus the prior 3 or 4 years. Now, what I wanted to show you is that all of these are available to you on the add widgets, where you can just add or remove as many widgets as you want. You can reorganize them on the screen. Now, most importantly is the ability to filter them. You can filter them by what we talked about earlier, the calendar type concept. I could look at just my adult and grad studies. Right now, I'm just looking at my traditional, and I can go back in time and look at any of the older terms that I have out here or my current term. And you can just set these filters to whatever you're looking for, and then the chart is automatically, dynamically updated with that information. So in a sense, this becomes a reporting tool. If I wanted to know, for example, what is my total number of applicants for a given term, for a given type of, for the School of Fine Arts, I could just click on the School of Fine Arts, go to the term, and hit apply, and I would get the admissions funnel for the School of Fine Arts term. It's as easy as that. In addition to that, all of the settings that I put in here are saved so that every time I log in and log out of the system, the next time I come back, all of the settings are remembered. I don't have to reset everything. It's all remembered for me. And finally, last thing I'll say about the dashboard here is that all of these items are clickable. So if I was curious to see who are these 15 prospects from the state of Pennsylvania, all I literally have to do is click on it, and I instantly get a filtered list, filtered for the term that I'm looking for. I'm looking at traditional students for the fall of 2020 from the state of Pennsylvania. And I see the list right here. So it's very easy to manage the analytics within our system. Now, we have a lot of other analytics I could get into more detail on, but I just wanted to start with that and just give you a sampling of what we have. Now, within our application, we really have 4 separate CRMs that were designed, as Ann said, by higher education. We worked with a number of educational partners to understand exactly what their needs were with respect to the entire admissions process. And we basically boiled it down to 4 separate stages. So stage 1 is the prospect. When you've got somebody who's expressed an interest in your college, you can call them a prospect, an inquiry, whatever your terminology is, and I'll show you how you can even adjust that terminology. But basically, the first CRM that we have is geared towards getting that prospect to apply. So you may want to communicate with that person over a period of 18 or even 24 months in a pre-scheduled fashion, sending them different information based on attributes or interests that they have, based on majors that they've expressed an interest in. Any of the information that they put on their prospect form, you can use to govern the automatic distribution of information to them. And the automatic distribution can be through text messaging, it can be through email, it can be paper mail, it can be pre-scheduled phone calls, or even pre-scheduled face-to-face meetings. So all of this is covered within that CRM. Now, any change made to a person's application at any point in time, not their application, but their prospect record, any change made either by them or by you automatically causes the system to reevaluate the checklist item, or not the checklist items rather, but the communication plan associated with that particular prospect. So if I was originally a nursing major and I had 27 items scheduled to come to me over the next 18 months, and I changed my major to management, it would automatically remove all those things that were related, that hadn't been delivered to me yet, that were related to nursing, and it would add on there any items that were related to management that I should be receiving or should have already received. So all those would automatically be added to my communication plan. Likewise, we have very simple rules that you can set up to determine who should be the recruiter or the admissions counselor for somebody, and I will demo that in just a minute. But I wanted to first go through the 4 CRMs. That was the first one. As soon as the prospect starts an application, we immediately terminate their prospect CRM and just essentially delete any items that have not yet been sent to them because they're no longer applicable. They've started the application process, and we immediately create a new communication plan geared towards getting them to complete their application and submit it. And once again, you can define exactly what those communications are, who they're coming from, what the messaging is in them, the distribution methodology, text message and email, whatever, and the schedule in which they're delivered. Once they actually submit their application, that communication plan automatically terminates. And again, if any changes are made to the application during that time, if you allow the student to make changes to the application, or if you make them administratively, we will once again automatically update that communication plan with the appropriate items that should be on it. Once you actually submit your application is essentially frozen. The student can't make changes to it. They'd have to call you unless you want to allow them to make certain changes. And the next item would be checklist items. And these would be items that are still required after they've submitted their application that you may require in order to make a final decision. For example, high school transcripts, or if it's a transfer student, official transcripts from their prior college. You might require certain things from an international student, maybe their visa or whatever. And we actually provide 2 different kinds. One kind is those things that are actually required to make an application decision. And the other kind of checklist items are things that are just required by the institution in order to attend in the fall. So maybe I need certain things that I have to get to you, a proof of immunizations if I was going to be a nursing major, but I don't have to get that to you for you to make a decision of either yes or no on my application, but I do need to get it to you before the semester begins.
He's upstairs.
So we do allow you to continue the communication plan even after a decision is made on the application. The final communication plan, that all ends when all of the items that they've submitted have been submitted. And then at that point, we're waiting for you to make a decision. When you make a decision, an additional communication plan is optionally implemented, and that would allow you to communicate with the prospect after the decision has been made. So it might send a rejection letter to those people who are not accepted by the college, or for those people who are accepted, there might be a scheduled phone call with the admissions counselor to congratulate them, followed up by an email with an attachment with a PDF copy of their acceptance letter. And maybe a week later, you send them an admissions package, and a month later, an invitation to an orientation. So all of those kind of things as not only a CRM, but in that case, we can even do workflow. And the workflow, for example, could to your portal if you have a portal. It could give them access to the college's email account. It could automatically even set up an email account for them and put them into your Active Directory. And finally, we could even push the information directly into your student information system. So those are the 4 CRMs that we're going to talk about and go through. In order to give you a demonstration of how this actually works, I've just gone here from the dashboard. I could have come here directly through the menu and just gone to prospects and looked at my list of prospects or recently viewed ones to give me a list of those people that I most recently saw. But on this form, again, this is one of the things that I think differentiates us a little bit. This form is, for all practical purposes, a reporting tool. Envision this as a giant spreadsheet. Right now, I've got it filtered to just those people from Pennsylvania. If I want to remove that Pennsylvania filter, I just click on the X and it goes away. And now I have all the prospects for the fall of 2020. So I have 628 prospects right now for the fall of 2020. Depending on who you are and what your job is, you may want to see different columns of information on this giant spreadsheet. Imagine that we have 100 different data elements that you can include. So I don't want gender, and maybe I don't even care what term they're applying for. But there's some other things I want to see. I can just go to customize columns and say, I'm not interested in gender, so I uncheck that. And I'm not interested in the term they're applying for, but I am interested in where they came from and what they're interested in. So I simply check those boxes, hit apply. My columns have changed, and now I'm seeing the source. Where did they hear about us? I'm seeing what things they might be interested in when they come to college, and those other columns have been removed. Once again, this is saved permanently on an individual user basis. So every individual user gets to personalize this to include all of the fields they want. You can include as many as you want. I can add, for example, the entire address, street line 1, city, state. I'll leave nation off. No, I'll add nation, what the heck. I'll put nation on there and hit apply. And now it doesn't necessarily fit well on the screen, but you can just horizontally scroll and see it. So you can add or remove as many columns as you want. You can reorganize them where you want them to be on the screen. And most importantly, and this is where the reporting comes into play, I can filter on these columns. So even though I have 628 people, if I'm looking for just the people whose last name begins with a T, I can just put a T, a little asterisk, and I just get those people whose name begins with a T, and there's 16 of them. I can add as many filters as I want at the same time or at other times. If I was just interested in people who had a certain attribute, let's say National Honor Society, I could just type in NAT, and it would show me all the ones that have expressed an interest in National Honor Society. Now you see here, this person is a member of the band, a member of the Boy Scouts and the National Honor Society, but it's still filtered on the National Honor Society for me. So again, you can filter on as many columns as you want simultaneously. So again, going back to the concept of a giant spreadsheet, this could be your entire database, and you could filter on whatever columns you want. You can filter on them as many different ways as you want. I can just use the sorting capability if I wanted to sort them by, let's say, email address. I just click on the email address and they're sorted by email address. Any sort that I do, if I sorted them by state, for example, it would do a subsort automatically by last name and first name and middle name. So it's very easy to sort the list. It's easy to include what you want on the list. And if you really, really, really need your own personal spreadsheet, all you have to do is click the export button. It will take all the columns of data that you've selected and all the rows of data you've selected and export that directly into Excel for you. Of course, that's not necessary because it's a web-based application and you can get to this data anywhere at any time. So it does make it very easy to use. So that's how personalized the information can be. When I open up an individual record and take a look at what a record looks like, you can see that I get an additional menu here showing me all the different sections of this prospect record. Now, it really is one large form, so I could simply scroll through the entire form, and get to all of these different locations. Or I could just click on, let's say, financial aid, and it would go directly to the financial aid section where the person has told me that they plan to file a FAFSA for this current semester, and they've already filed some for prior semesters. I can also see my CRM, all the communications that have ever been made to this prospect in chronological order would be listed here, or I can sort them however I want. I'll just do it in chronological right now. I can see that this one is pending. It hasn't gone out yet. It's scheduled to go out on August 4th as a follow-up to the honors program. And these are done. I can see that some of them were sent via email, some were sent by text message, some were phone calls. I can see that there's a couple that are overdue, so it looks like this phone call is overdue. I was supposed to get back in touch with this person, so as the recruiter, I can simply click on that line and bring up the detail of that, and I can read the notes that were put in there. Looks like I called Cindy back on the 15th and left a message. I expected to hear back. So if I call her today, which I could just click on one of these phone numbers to dial it directly if I had a soft phone on my laptop, or I can pick up the phone and call. While I'm on the call with her, I can put a note in here. She plans to apply next week, and I can just add that note. And because I'm done with this, I could now mark it as complete, or I could just save it and come back to it later. It would still show up on my to-do list, but I'll mark it as complete, and that flags it as done. So now I have that task completed. I don't need to remind Carly over a phone call anymore because it's done. Now, some of them are labeled with ad hoc. Ad hoc just means it was not part of the automated communication plan, but rather a manual communication. I can send manual communications to somebody by just adding a task. Very simple here. Let's call it a quick call to Carly. And it does spell check everywhere, so that's because I don't spell very well. And I'll just put this in as a phone call. Because I put it as a phone call, it wants to know what number to use. And by default, cell would be first, but you set these defaults in the order that it looks for phone numbers. And what's the message? Tell her it's not too late to apply. And I can just save that. That automatically will now show up on the dashboard as an item that needs to be done, and it will be assigned to the individual recruiter. I might not be the recruiter for this person. Maybe I'm in charge of the department, or maybe a phone call came in and the recruiter wasn't here, so I updated this record. And whoever the recruiter is, in this case, Suzanne, will be notified that she needs to make this phone call to that student. So it's as easy as that to do an ad hoc communication. If it was a text message, we could have actually had it gone out immediately. If it was an email, it would have been scheduled to go out the next time emails are scheduled to run. And you do have the ability to handle all of that. I did get a question in here that I just noticed. Sorry about that. I wasn't paying attention. Are these branded? Are there branded templates for emails? And can you see communication tasks or just name them? The answer is you can see them. As you just saw, I was able to see the entire communication. All of these can be branded. If there was an email, let me look at an email communication. Here's an email. If I just go to the content, you can see that the email has been personalized and signed by the counselor. If there was graphical representations in there, you would have seen them here. You can have templates and define those templates for your email messages, because it does make it easier. And I'll show you how to create one of these in just a minute. But in terms of the branding, we go far beyond branding for email. We do branding within the system, and we do give you the ability to brand the application any way you want in terms of logos, background images, and the like. So I would certainly be able to show you that. As a matter of fact, these are our latest release notes for the version that is just right now been put into testing, and I know we made some enhancements to the branding in here, so I could just give you a quick example of branding. Here's one of the enhancements for our self-service landing page, where we give you the ability to create this overlay text, and all you have to do is just type in the text, and we'll automatically handle the overlay for you. And you tell us whether it's a third of the screen or half of the screen, And this is basically the login page. You can put a logo here or an image if you want to. You can control the text. You can control the background image. So there's quite a bit of branding that you can do, and it's all very, very easy to do. You simply upload the pictures, and there's a nice user interface to show you exactly what it would look like, and you can just update that branding. And this was just some enhancements we made in the last release. So going back to what I was talking about in the demo here, I'm going to go and show you how easy it is to create an automated task. I just showed you a manual task and how easy that was. Let me show you an automated task. And here's all the automated tasks that we have. Right now I have 108, and this is just for managing prospects. There's, again, a different group for managing checklist items for decision CRMs, and a different group for applications. But this is a particular group that we've defined for prospects. So if I wanted to define a new task that was going to be used to send a brochure 1 week after the prospect got into the system, and it would come from the department that they were affiliated with, or maybe let's do one that's going to come from the honors department, with maybe an invitation to them because they've told us that they're a member of the National Honor Society. I'm going to invite them to an honors program. So to do that, all I have to do is create a new task, and this is a one-time thing. So I'll call this the invitation, honors invitation for science. What group of people do you want it to go to? In this case, we'll take traditional. It defaults to whatever calendar type you're affiliated with, so I could pick anyone. And how would I like it to go out? Let's choose email. You can affiliate it with a campaign if you wanted to. So I'm going to just affiliate this with the honors campaign. And I'd like this to go out 7 days, and in this case, after the prospect was created. I could go the other direction and make it 7 days before the application deadline or the application end date. But in this case, I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to give it an email subject line. We'll call this an honors program opportunity. And now you've got this little WYSIWYG editor where you can embed any kind of graphic images you want, any HTML. I'll just keep it simple and just say dear. And of course you want this to be personalized. So we'll say dear first name, and then you can put in your message, whatever it is that you wanted to send. And that can be as long as you want. There's no limitations on that. And because it's going to be sent by the recruiter, we don't want to sign it with my name. I'd rather just sign it with the sender's name. So it'll automatically put the signature of the sender. And the signature could be just the sender's name, in this case, Dennis Tebow, or I could have, like you do in email, a nice signature with some graphics on it with your website, your phone number, all that information could all be applied automatically by simply defining that one time in the system. And of course, I can add an attachment, so I could add a nice brochure to this. I just pick my document. I don't know if I happen to have a good one here, but I don't want one that's too big. Anyway, you get the idea. I just pick a document and upload it and assign it there. I would then save that. However, before I do, I want to create the rules of who it goes to. And in this case, I'm going to create a new rule, and it's going to be an and rule. And I'm going to say that I want this person to make sure that they have an attribute, and I can say equals, and then the list of attributes would be all the attributes that you've defined within your system. So why am I now getting my system hung up here? For some reason, my system just hung there for a minute. So you define all the different attributes. In this case, we want National Honor Society. So we just click on that. So now my attribute has to be National Honor Society, and that rule is ANDed with another rule. Now the other rule is going to be the 3 different management, I think I said management department, right? Honors program for science. So I think I need 3 sciences. So I'm going to add a group, and within that group, I'll just make them an OR. And we can just add some OR rules in here. And I can say your major has to be equal to, and I'll pick, let's say biology. And I'll add another rule here where your major has to be equal to, let's say, chemistry. And I could add as many as I want here. So I could add another 10 or 15 majors that were all science majors. And then I can test the rule to find out how many prospects it would actually apply to. That's a handy feature in case you define the rule incorrectly and all of a sudden it said this would apply to 75,000 people. You'd say, oh goodness, what did I do? Simple as that. You create the rule, you save the rule, and you're done. It automatically applies to those 3 people that it would have applied to. And in the future, anybody who now meets these conditions, that is a member of the National Honor Society and is either of these 2 majors, this rule would apply. And that email message that you entered here would be personalized and sent to them 7 days after they become a prospect in the database. So very easy. Everything I've showed you from a prospect perspective and would be exactly the same from an application. The only real difference between a prospect and an applicant is that an applicant has more questions available. Now, I will show you, I'm going to just cancel that. I don't really want to save that. I will show you an applicant just to give you a sense of how many more fields there are on an application. I've already filtered this for accepted applicants, so I'm going to take a look at Ainsley Abbott and see what she has in here. And you can see the menu is a little bit expanded in here. Now, I'm going to show you in just a second, because I am going to have time to get there, how you can personalize this for each of your calendar types. And the idea is that we've created hundreds of questions that are available to you based on the needs of all kinds of different colleges, 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, privates, publics, religious-based organizations, pretty much anything you can think of. And many of those may or may not be applicable to you. You, for example, might not care about the church, the religion, the pastor's name. You can disable that entire section, or you can disable individual fields within that section. So when you're under personal information, if you don't care about the name prefix, you can disable that field. In fact, every single field on the prospect form and the application form, you have the ability, number 1, to decide if it's there or not there. If you don't want it, you just uncheck the box. It goes away instantly from your application. If you don't like what we've called it, if you'd rather call it name prefix, you simply change it to name prefix, and then for all of the traditional students, it will now say name prefix on every form that's related to traditional students. If you want it to be a mandatory field, you simply check a box and flag it as mandatory. And in terms of what's available in the pull-down menu, you have complete control of what's in the pull-down menus for every single pull-down menu within our system. So in a sense, every single field here, you have complete control over. So during the initial setup of the application, you would make all your decisions on what they should look like and what should be asked, what should be mandatory, what's not mandatory, what are the values in the pull-down menu, and then you're set to go. You would then define all of your individual tasks for the different communication plans we talked about, and you would be able to use those. One of the other things we've done in our system to try to make it a little bit easier for people to use is we've tried to make it easy for people to enter data into the system. And I'll show you an example of that. Let's suppose I'm adding a new address into the system. We set up defaults that you control. And again, they can be individual, or they could be based on the grouping, the calendar type, or they could be institutional defaults, however you wish to do it. And all you have to do is enter the zip code. So I happen to live in 02038. So when I enter the zip code, it pre-populates the city, state, and county, and it won't let me change those because those are the ones that match to the zip code. So I can then put in a street address, and I'm done. It knows when that was in there. I can mark this as my primary address if I want to, and just hit done. But we've also done some other cool things in here. I'm going to cancel that and start again. Suppose I was entering some prospects from another country. Let's say I was in Canada, and I put Canada. Then it automatically changes from zip code to postal code because it knows that. You know, in India it would be a state, in other countries it would be a region. So we've got a table in the background that knows all the nations and knows all the different codes that are available and so forth for each nation. We do a similar thing for phone numbers. If I were to add a new phone number into the system, again, you can set up defaults and different types of phone numbers. In this case, we've got cell phone as the default, and again, we're defaulting to the United States, so it knows that it's a 1 as your international dialing code. Whereas if I pick another country, let's say Albania, it's a 355. We also validate the number of digits. So let's put in a United States number. If I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 digits, that's not good enough. I need 10 digits in the United States. So we're validating at least the number of digits to make sure that you're entering the right number of digits for the country that you're entering it for. We do that because not every nation has the same number of digits in their dialing, and we want to make sure that the international dialing codes are right. So based on the nation you've selected, we hard code in the dialing code for you, and you don't have to worry about looking it up or making sure that it's accurate. We have a lot of other places that we handle that. If you do a lot of international students, for example, we have this veterans information. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about international right now, I'm talking about veterans, sorry. But under veterans, if you say you are a veteran, we have these smart fields that will then ask you for your veteran ID number. If you are active in the military and you say yes, we'll prompt you for whether or not you're going to be using tuition assistance and what's your military ID. So we call these smart fields. They're available throughout the application. And I think it's under personal data is where the international stuff is. So if you tell me, for example, that you are not a citizen of the United States, then we will immediately ask you, what nation are you a citizen of? And you can pull it down, or you can just look it up. If I was from the Ukraine, I could just type UK, and it would find it, put it in there. Do you require an I-20? If you do, you just check the box. Are you a permanent resident of the United States? If you say yes, then it says, what's your alien registration number? So what we've done is we've taken into consideration all the different things that you need to deal with respect to SEVIS, with respect to the I-20s, with respect to all the different parts of the system that you would need. And we default all these things in there. Now, again, you have the ability to control which of these are mandatory and what the labels are. If you don't care about secondary language or even primary language, then you don't have to see these on the form. It's very easy to do that. Now, I can say it's easy, and hopefully you'll believe me, but I'm going to show you how easy that really is in just a second. In the meantime, other areas of things like interests, if I had other interests, I could just add more onto my list of all those that are available. So if I'm interested in tutoring and student leadership, I can just add those. And a student or an applicant can do this exactly the same way. They can put in sort of their resume of what have they done in the past. This person's a member of the Honor Society and also volunteers at the Red Cross. And if you're interested in sports, again, you put in all your sports teams and you can put in whatever you want. I want to play softball, so I'll just put that in there. And these can all trigger additional communications. You could have communications set up that are based on sports or activities or interests or attributes. You can have things based on financial aid, whether or not you're applying for scholarships. If you are applying for scholarships, you could even add the scholarships that you want to apply for. And you've got a pull down list of whatever ones that you have available at your institution and whatever amounts they can choose from and so forth. So you can put as many of those in as you want. And again, you don't have to have these. If you don't want them, you can put them in. There's a section for notes. There's a section for all that. And this is for the checklist items that I alluded to earlier. These are the items, because this is an applicant now, not a prospect. This applicant has submitted their application and they had some checklist items that needed to be dealt with. So it looks like we're still waiting for this test checklist item and a photo to be uploaded. These other checklist items have been completed, and I could always just open these up and take a look at them. If for any reason I wanted a new checklist manually added, I could do that. Then we can sign the application electronically. You can control all the text on the screen. We can include manually added documents. We can allow them to release information to other people if you wanted to do that. And of course, we've got all the decisions that have been made on this application. Looks like we had an internal decision, which was pending, which we sent off to Julie to check to see if there was some handicap housing available. We got the feedback that there was through the automated workflow. So then we made an accept decision on the application. And we even have the ability to put custom questions on here. So if there are questions that you thought of that you need to add that we missed, you have the ability to put those on here as well, and then save the application. So I was going to
Dennis,
show you.
Dennis, I'm giving you a 10-minute mark just to let you know on the time check. Thanks.
Yep, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm right on schedule with my abbreviated demo. So just to give you a sense of where we're at, I just wanted to show you how you can set up the institutional defaults here. And these are not only just defaults that you're setting up, but you're also setting up rules. So under application, I can determine whether or not I want to allow multiple applications for a given term for the same student. If I say yes, then it will add this question, whether or not I want to limit them. And if I say yes, it will ask me how many. And these rules can be different for each different calendar type. So if I had a different set of rules for my adult and grad study students, I could just add a different set of rules for adult and grad study and say, no, we don't limit them. We don't allow multiples for adult and grad study. Or if I said yes, then we would get the additional prompts. But I'm going to say no, and I'm not going to allow them for adult and grad study. So now I've created two totally different sets of rules for different groups of people within the college. But you can go through all these different things. We even check for duplicates as duplicates get into the system, because data can be uploaded into the system through automatic file feeds that you can establish. So if you buy names from a company like Royal, or if you receive applications from the Common App, these can automatically be uploaded into your system. But as you know, there's a likelihood that they may already be in there. So you can define your own rules how to test to see if somebody is already in the database. This rule I created this morning for another demo I was on, where we just give a weight of 25 for the first name, 25 for the last name, the date of birth, and the phone number. And if all four match, the score would be 100, and would say that's an exact match to an existing record, so we would automatically merge the records together. If only 3 of these 4 matched, it would be a total of 75 points, which would be enough to put it into the partial match category, where we would give you the opportunity to look at the 2 records side by side manually and make a decision whether or not they were the same. And if they were the same, you could simply click on either side and highlight the individual fields you'd like from one record versus the other. And we automatically do a fairly good job of merging them together for you, because if we see data on one side but not on the other side, we automatically check that data so you get the most data possible. If you decide that they're not duplicates, you simply click a button and we'll ignore that, and we won't ever treat them as a duplicate again. And again, these rules can be different for different constituency groups. This one is set up for my traditional, but I could do it by another calendar type as well. I showed earlier the institutional branding, so we covered that. For schools that have offices in different locations, in this case, you can show how do you want the information represented. Do you want your addresses to be displayed in uppercase? How would you like your phone numbers displayed, and what date format? For schools that have another branch in Europe, they might want to use European standards where you're using day, month, year. By clicking that and saving that, that becomes my new default standard, and every date displayed in the entire application for that calendar type would then be displayed in the new format. So it's very easy to make changes globally for the entire application. Under changing and managing those fields, this is where I wanted to show you under let's go under prospect, for example. On my prospect form, you can see that I have just hundreds of fields available to me. I didn't like the ethnicity value, so I changed it. I just said, I'd rather ask the question, are you Hispanic or Latino? And I didn't like marital status, so I wanted it to say, are you married? So I simply put in the new value and made that decision. Up here you can see that enabled means it is visible on the screen. Mandatory means it's mandatory. So if I decided that campus wasn't supposed to be called campus, it was called, I want to call it location. I'll call it school location. And if I do that, then for the traditional students, instead of seeing campus, they're always going to see school location. If I wanted that to be a mandatory field, I simply click the box and it's mandatory. If I don't want it at all, and I just don't even want to ask that question, I simply uncheck the box, and now that question will never be asked. It will never even appear on the form. So it's that easy to manage this. So you just do it one time, and you're good to go. I can save that. I don't really want to save it. I don't want to mess up my demo, but I can change it to school location. Save that. So now if I go look at a prospect where we normally would have said campus, it would now say school location. So let's just go take a quick look at a prospect record, and we will see school location when we open one up. I'll just open up Cindy, and somewhere down here, just do a quick search for school location, and there it is. So the prompt became school location instead of campus. The values in there are still the campuses where my school is located, but I have changed the label to be called school location. So as simple as that. So I've really covered most of the things that I think are highlights between what we do and maybe what other applications do. I know we've got about another 3 minutes before we get into the questions, so I could show you some of the other nice things that we do, like defining academic calendars and terms. Again, very easy. If I just go to calendar, I can see that I can define as many academic calendars as I want. If I go backwards, I can see a historical calendar for the 2019-2020 year. Each of these calendars can have a term or as many terms as you want, subterms even. So right now I've defined my fall of 2020 term. It begins in August and ends in December. And if I open up that term, I can put events on that term, activities of any kind. I could just add events. I can create subterms or parts of terms within there. And by editing the term, I can control what happens within that term. So here's the term starting and ending date. Here's the recruiting period. So a prospect, I don't have to do anything on my web forms. My website will automatically be updated on this date to open up this term as a valid term that a person can select. So beginning on June of 2018, I was able to apply for the fall of 2020, even though it was a year and a half away, because that's when my recruiting period started. Recruiting period ends on August 14th. Down here, I'm also saying, when does my application period start and end? I can put in things like, when's the last date to apply? When's the last time I'm going to communicate with my checklist letters? When's the last date that I can make a change to my application or communication? So it's very easy to do these things. Adding events is also very easy. I can just add an event. We'll put an open house in here. We can call it an academic event. You can define as many different types of events as you want. Each event has its own unique color. And again, you define the color coding of these. You can put in a long description right here. Long description. Got 1 more minute. You can put in a location. Where is it going to be held? When does it begin? When does it end? Our class is held or our office is open during the event. And just add it to your calendar. And that automatically shows up on my calendar. So that's that. You know, we've got a lot of things we could get into. If we had more time, I would normally get into course catalog and how you can define all your different programs and whether these programs include potential minors, majors, concentrations, and so forth. And then you can use these as curriculum management rules to prevent somebody from selecting a combination of major, minor, or whatever that you didn't actually offer. And even managing your employees, you can manage all of your employees very easily and decide what roles they have. This is where you make somebody an admissions counselor or recruiter. You can just add a new role to that person, make them an academic advisor if you want. You can also control what rights and privileges each role has, and then what calendar types that person has the ability to deal with. This person only can deal with School of Documentation or traditional, so they cannot deal with adult and graduate studies or the School of Medicine. And also we would tell if
We
they
are,
were,
we're at the
now at our
50
limit.
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
we're
so
at our limit.
I'm going to pause and I will open up the door for any kind of questions. Are they all going to be in the chat window, Anne, or will they be able to verbalize their question?
It's up to Bob. I know he said that they wanted it in the chat, but we're obviously open to any verbal and or chat questions. So.
Verbal's fine. We just usually use chat while the presentation was going on. So.
Oh, perfect. Wonderful.
If there's no questions, you can continue talking if you want.
Oh, wonderful.
Right.
Okay, we'll just keep an eye on the questions, and anyone, if you have a question, please feel free just to interrupt for the last 10 minutes. Thank you.
We did just get a question asking if
Wonderful.
I could mention something about the integration with Banner, ECT, or CAS. We absolutely do have integrations. We have, when we log into the application, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to by CAS, we can tie our authentication into any authentication system you have. So I've just logged out of the application. When I go to log in, the username and password that I enter here can be tied to any authentication system that you want. So if this is an LDAP environment or Active Directory, that's perfectly fine. We integrate directly with those. So once you log in, that's that integration. In terms of integration with student information systems, we do integrate a number of different ways with student information systems. The best way for integration, quite honestly, is through the workflow based on decisions, because we do have the ability to create decision-based workflows where you could, for example, say, when you accept a student, I want to create a student record. If you want that record to be created directly into Banner, we can do that. Now, it does depend on what version of Banner you're running. If you're running an older version of Banner, Banner 8 or Banner 9, where you have not yet implemented APIs, we would have to use the old-fashioned way of utilizing SQL. It's a little bit more of a setup in that we need an Oracle account in your environment to be able to push the data in and then write it to the appropriate tables. But we do write information to approximately 30 different tables in Banner if you want us to. Again, you have the ability to control that integration and what we actually do. But we definitely can integrate to Banner. If you have Banner 9 and you have the API set up, it's a little bit easier integration, and we just push the data over. In terms of other things like ACT, SCT, or other kinds of test scores, absolutely we can integrate with those. Let me see if I can just open up real quick. And meanwhile, if somebody else has another question, feel free to ask. And I'll get to you in just a second. I'm just going to look up somebody that I put in this morning, a fellow by the name of Edward Barron. And he has some test scores in here. It's probably under academics. Yeah, so we can manually enter test scores, in this case an ACT test. So this person entered their ACT score, or maybe this came in manually, maybe it was faxed to us. So we just put in the various scores. And you can determine how to calculate the score. In this case, we chose to add the sum of the 5 parts. Okay, but if you wanted the average of those 5 parts, that's perfectly fine too from a rating perspective. So you can rate the overall exam any way you want, and then it would be consistently rated for all of your students. In terms of the integration, these can be uploaded directly into the CRM for you. So you don't have to manually enter them. If you get a file from, let's say, the College Board with SAT scores, we'd upload those and we'd do duplicate matching.
We actually
Hopefully
have
that
another
answered that question. Yep, we have another one here. Can we access the data outside of the system CRM? For example, there would be a need to produce a Tableau report or run SQL queries. We absolutely do have a way to do that. It is not an SQL database, it's a NoSQL database, which gives us the ability to store more objects in the database itself. So our database actually consists of more than just SQL tables. It consists of SQL tables plus all the objects that we've created within the database or that you've uploaded into the database, such as documents and so forth, which does give you some added advantages in that you may or may not need a separate document management system to manage documents within the admissions office. If you're paying an exorbitant license fee for managing documents, you probably don't need to do that anymore because we can now manage all the documents affiliated with your application directly within our own database. We use a tool called Elastic combined with Kibana, which are fantastic reporting tools that not only give you all of the functionality of Tableau, but it's also the license is included with this product. So you don't have to pay for a separate Tableau reporting license. And you have not only the reporting capability, but also visualizations, where you can select the data in a report type format and then get a graphical representation of that same information. So it could look like an Excel spreadsheet, or it could look like a bar chart, or it could look like a pie chart, whatever kind of chart or graphical representation of that data that you want. Now, to make that even better, what we've done is we've set it up so that those reports can be saved and you can have a URL that points to that report in either static form or real time. So you could email, say, to the president, a copy of that visualization that you've created, the graphical representation of your admissions data. And when the president clicks on the link, he will either get the saved report that you've generated, or if it's a real-time report, then it would be instantly generated in real time. Now, it may take 2 or 3 seconds to load if it's being generated in real time, but it will be real-time data. So if, for example, he wanted to see the admissions funnel, and he didn't want to bother to log into the dashboard to see it because it would always be available right here based on his role. But if he wanted this to be available to him through email, where you could just email him a link and he'd click on it, he could get that visualization through our reporting tool. One final thing about the Elastic situation that we have is that can be tied to multiple databases. So you're not restricted on just accessing this one database. You could access 2 databases simultaneously, which goes back to the previous question that was asked about integrations to things like Banner. Most admissions offices would like to know what happened after the student was accepted. Now, it's one thing to create a record in Banner and leave it there. It's another thing to know what happened to that person after the semester began. Usually in Banner, they would matriculate the students after the census date, or at some point in the semester, they'd become matriculated and they would populate a field in Banner with a matriculation date. The Elastic reporting tool can go directly into Banner if you give it the appropriate rights, link the people together, and give you information like how many of these people that were accepted actually were still here as of the census date. So it gives the admissions office the ability to get a little bit more detailed information. So hopefully that covered that question. We've got about another minute and a half if there's any last minute questions that somebody was thinking about asking. Otherwise, I'll give it back to Ann to wrap it up because we've got less than 1 minute. So any last minute questions from anybody, feel free to put them in the pane. Otherwise, Ann, back over to you to wrap up.
Great. We'll just leave it open for any questions. Like we said, we have less than a minute left. Okay, wonderful. Well, we'd like to thank everyone on the call today for the opportunity to spend some of our time today showcasing our Unified Student Admit solution and answering your questions. Our goal is to be more than just your solution provider. We want to be your solution partner. To that end, we just want to tell you a little bit from our inception. By being built by and for higher ed, we've always been a company whose products are built with collaboration between our product development teams and our higher ed community. and we continue to use working groups, the working group process, to address the unique student engagement and technology needs of higher education. So we'd like to thank you again for your time, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all very much. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you
Thank
all.
you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.